I guess it all started when I was born. I had two older brothers and we lived in a small village somewhere in the snow. When I was 11 years old, our city got attacked by Bovisti. My brother, Robert Jan, came to help me, but we couldn't find our other brother. After hearing too many explosions, it was time to leave. So Robert and I ran for the whole night. Eventually, we went to sleep somewhere, but Robert disappeared while he was the guard for the hour. I was left on my own as an 11-year-old. After many years, I had created my own kingdom Entropia. I was a just and honest king. I was a good king. We didn't have the biggest cities or the most civilians, but we did have much land, respect, and honor. But as I was walking around the city one dark night, green filled up the air. It felt sour to my skin and I decided to walk faster. Eventually, the smoke turned into rain and was hurting. I quickly ran into the throne room, only to be surprised by an army of weird creatures. According to my duke, I woke up years later and I didn't remember anything. But over time I started to remember more and more of the person I was as King Darkino. Eventually, after remembering most of my life, we went and settled more and more cities over our land. In one city, we even met someone with supernatural powers. But I'll tell you more about that later. Until one day I met someone from Bovisti, right in front of me as he was exploding our cities. I cried while watching the city burn and hearing the screams of people dying. This meant to us as an act of war. We had multiple allies such as Empire and the God of Elementals. We decided it was time for Bovisti to stop and went over to their kingdom, and the same person who blew up Entropia and the god started fighting. But the Bovisti was too strong and we just managed to escape death, but we did learn something that day. Bovisti's power source came from the gods of Helios, so I decided to hire Teros to destroy the heart of Helios. We did realize that Helios wouldn't just let it fly over, the same goes for Bovisti. This meant that we had to change our settings, our names and our kingdom. We became the island of Crux, but because Teros did know we changed, we got in trouble again. Teros and their ally Melino locked down the island and started demanding tax. Given our circumstances, we agreed to taxes and became the toys of Melino. We did, later on, actually gain a Helios ally. This happened because of the god of elementals wanted to talk to the empire about some business and I decided to come along, where we ran into the god since he was protecting the king. But that Helios god was way more than just an ally, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Not any harm had come to us for a while, even though we had killed 3 of the Teros men and even robbed Melino. Even better, Helios befriended us and gave us a special gift with an enchanted super weapon and great defense. But it was clear a war was on the rise. We put the war with Bovisti on hold and started focusing on Teros but mostly Melino. But during the discussion and planning on how to attack the kingdom, both Teros and Melino attacked the island. My Duke, Rijn, and I managed to escape, but not before everything we had worked on for so long was burning down. So we moved to a side of an island and built our city once again. After a few, maybe months, another Craxian survivor came on our road. This was Duke Ingmar. He was often seen as a general too, and he showed his general skills soon after his return when we were stealing Atla's stocks. But Atla did not take this lightly and decided to hire Teros to once again burn the city. We realized that things needed to change if we wanted to survive and stay in the same city. Rijn made his own kingdom, Bor, and I once again went looking for a new place. For the 50th time I settled in a desert. I built up a village with fellow Craxians and we were actually doing better. A new part of the map had been discovered and we were the first to claim it. Even though this place was cold as balls, we were becoming stronger. We even managed to lead our first attack on Firion into a victory together with the Lord. Later on we got back the old team. The god of elementals, Rijn from Bor, and me started another attack on Firion and destroyed the whole city. This was long before I knew who was the real leader of Firion, but as I returned back to the village I noticed a lot of holes in the ground. I was near Crux and I already saw a fire in the sky. We had been attacked while we were gone. We figured the elementals god Melvin could help us, but he turned dark, so we fled once again. Rijn came back to join Crux and we built another city in another desert. Things were actually going well for the first time. We were able to build up a great castle and a defense line. The civilians were happy and we became rich. But as usual, the happiness didn't last for an eternity. One day as my Duke and I were walking around the city, admiring the beauty it had become, we noticed a Bovisti tower right in the middle of the city. We went in together and after many obstacles, we found a written letter. It said the city would be torn apart if we didn't listen to the letter. We had to drink a potion that was under a place where I came daily. We figured that it would be the throne and we went digging but couldn't find anything. So we prayed to the gods, but the weirdest thing happened. Probably because of that. We returned to the throne room, but right in front of us was a flying god. He claimed to be a fallen warrior from 10 years before. It was a god from Platos, but he said he was down with Bovisti and wanted to join forces with us, Bovisti's greatest enemies. He gave us the items to build an altar for him if we ever needed his help. Later on, the god brought us to Atla and we raided the town. We found mystical items which led us to being able to put a curse on Atla. But because we were friends with this Platos god, the old elementals god came to us too. It forced us to create an alliance with them. This could lead to both good and bad outcomes, which indeed happened. Taros got a new king, and it was a king that was nice. We even became friends with the king of Taros. So King Mark of Taros and I were meeting, but the Helios god came to us and warned us that Ankh, Bovisti, Virion and Atla were planning on attacking us. We wouldn't believe it first, but we did get scared, so we came up with a plan and got our soldiers together. Turns out that an attack would never come. But a Merian spy did enter our throne room and he gifted us a letter from the gods that were now known as Tixa and Platos. Both agreed that the wars had to end, so they decided to come up with this weird democratic idea. They called it the Senate. It was a place where we would vote about the happenings on Tordisти, but it didn't work very well. But the letter also told us that the kingdom Fenrir once destroyed Bovisti. Bovisti was our biggest enemy. So Ingmar and I went to Fenrir and then joined our alliance, now consisting of Crux, Terrals, Elementals, Yanava, Bor and New Fenrir. We called it Trindomist. We became less scared, a bad thing actually, since it meant we were letting our guard down. Then the king of Virion blew a hole in our wall and walked in on his own. He killed no one, but every guard watched as he was making his way to the throne room. There he stood, right in front of us, and claimed he got attacked by our own soldiers. But he was also there to let me know of something else. Something none of us had expected, and something that led to a negative turning point in the war. The king of Virion revealed his name, Robert Jan. It was my own brother. For a long time, I had been war with my own brother. He told us to watch out and that we would come off with a warning for one last time, but the war was rising. Bor got scared and left the alliance to then join our enemies, leaving us with less and the enemy with more. But the time had come, time to get attacked by our worst enemies. It was inevitable. Once again from the same place the Virion king came, two Bovistis came. But it did have kinda weird once. Mark and I had the only option to flee through the mines, but we did get followed. We went through a big cave system, but after a few long days we finally saw the sunlight again. Thankfully, we were able to get to our friend of New Fenrir. It was a strong kingdom and it helped us create new cities and become stronger than ever. We attacked Bor and completely wiped them out of the world. The same thing happened a few months later to Atla. This left us with only Ankh, Bovisti and Virion as the enemy. King Vendring and I went to Virion together and killed my brother after not being able to retrieve him. Things were going fast and only in our favor, but Bovisti was protected by the gods of Platos, and Platos didn't really like us after Bor and Atla. So Bovisti and Unk got a lot of help from Platos and destroyed New Vinrin, Yanava and Elementals. Theros was scared to be the next, so agreed to hold every attack, but after everything, I had too much self-respect to end the war. I wanted to go until the end. I tried fighting, but eventually Bovisti invaded the last standing city of Cracks. They had an uncountable amount of men. I was overthrown and defeated. They thought it was more fun to banish me from Tordisти than to just kill me, so I went up to Braga. The continent of Braga was mostly snow and a froze of all my honor. I thought I was becoming crazy, as one day I walked out of my house and saw a god of Platos standing on the lake. But he was real. I walked up to him and it turned out This was the old Cruxian warrior god. And it turned out, he was my father. I finally understood why I got banished. I killed his son, and he didn't want to lose another one. I was his last remaining son, because I was also told that King Venrin was his son. At least one brother of mine had the same ideology as me. But I got unbanished and went back to Tordisty. Obviously, Ankh and Movisi didn't really enjoy my return. The leaders of both kingdoms went to the rebuilt city of Crux and began a full-on genocide for every Cruxian ever. I fled to the highest tower of the kingdom and hid over there. The kings came up and King Ankh thought it was my last moment. He decided he no longer needed Bovisti, so he killed the king. But this is where I took his lack of attention and killed the king of Ankh. Finally, all my enemies were dead. But what was the cost? Thousands of innocent people died. Dozens of cities got destroyed and entire kingdoms weren't existing anymore. I had destroyed so much of the world in the last few years. It was time to go to a new place. A place where no one knew where I was. I took a small boat and sailed the sea for 83 days. I arrived at what I thought was an island, but most people called the mainland. Only living in a small house in the Black Desert, life was actually acceptable and normal, but there were wars between the legions of this land. I was still able to live there with 5 fellow Lunians until a green smoke had returned to destroy the desert. We fled to the forest, but Hera could kill us any given time, so we stole a boat and sailed for another 2 years. In those 2 years, one of our men fell overboard and died. We later hit something on the ground and the ship sunk. We quickly swam to the land and we arrived on the island of Merlada, where we have to move out quickly if we want to live.